against What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Happy summer, one and all. It is hotter than Hades up in here. And we're going to have some fun over the next 4 hours. Here's how you guys can take part in what we've got cooking. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. The YouTube page is there for you as well at the Fan Upstate, where we are broadcasting live, my friends, exactly and totally and completely right now. Fantastic to see you guys. Always do appreciate you making us part of your day. Coming up on the show this afternoon, we've got 5 bold college football predictions. I'm going to do something. I'm going to suggest something in Major League Baseball that you're going to say is blasphemous. But if you hear me out, you will see that I'm absolutely 100% right. He had a very, very bad first game, but I was more impressed than if he'd had an outstanding game. We've got our ACC and SEC team preview series today with Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. We've got our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket, the top 5 at 5, onsides and offsides, and you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. So, folks, you know that a lot of times in this job, in this show, we kind of goof around a little bit at the beginning. We have a lot of fun. A lot of times we have a pointed sports commentary to get to right away, right at the open. And today is not that day. Today we have some serious and some somber news to share with you right at the beginning of the show, and a couple of different points to get to. And if you haven't heard of either of these, it's going to shock you, sadden you. Even if you haven't heard of a single, even if you've heard of one of the two, but not both, it's going to shock you and sadden you a little bit. First things first, our teammate, Brandon Keeler, had a traumatic health event on Saturday night. Brandon suffered a heart attack. You have heard him on Offsides. You have seen him at our live shows. You have seen that he has absolutely had the best spirits in terms of, waving the company flag and like being all about the team and stopping by and saying hello every chance he can. And today, Brandon Keeler is still undergoing open heart surgery as of the results of his heart attack. He is in the ICU. I got to be honest with you folks, on days like today, it's hard to do what we do, right? There were a few days like that during the pandemic, but imagine for a moment that, you just got news that your mom has cancer, or, your uncle had a heart attack, or your wife blacked out at home and hit her head on the counter. And then imagine that you have our job and you're just supposed to get on the air. And nobody here says, hey, Mark, get on the air and act like nothing's wrong. Nobody here does that. They're good about this kind of stuff here. They just say, okay, we got to do a show, get on the air, be genuine, and be real. So I'd be lying, folks, if I told you that today my head is fully in this. All right? Like, I've been talking back and forth with his wife, Cassie, the entire day. I feel awful because yesterday, a few times a year, folks, I do this thing where I just shut my cell phone off. And I am in the midst of a stretch of having 16 shows in 18 days. And so Saturday night, we finished the CBS show. It's like 11:30, and I said, babe, I'm shutting my phone off until Monday morning. It's Saturday night. I'm shutting it off till Monday morning. And so all day yesterday, I had no phone. Was very therapeutic for me. Was able to disconnect from social media and disconnect from connectivity, and was able to reconnect with my wife and with my life, right? Was able to do all of that, which was great. But when I turned on the phone this morning, I had all these messages from Cassie and from Brandon, and I felt like, gosh, man, I really hope they don't think I don't care. I just didn't have my phone on the entire day yesterday. So obviously, all of us here at the Fan Upstate and at Odyssey Greenville, 25 Garlington Road in Greenville, South Carolina, we are shaken by this news, to say the least. And, I'm not a huge thoughts and prayers guy, right? Like, I don't like to say that because I feel like a lot of people just throw that out there, thoughts and prayers, whenever something bad when something bad happens, and that's supposed to suggest that you're doing all you can. We need to do a lot more than thoughts and prayers here. But I prayed in our office today. I am praying for Brandon and his family right now. And I know that those of you that listen to our show every single day, Brandon, of Brandon. He's worked on every single show here. He's in his 30s. He's just the best dude. I mean, that's like, honestly, guys, he's the best dude. If there's a better person than Brandon Keeler that works at our organization, I don't know who that is. And our thoughts are first and foremost with him today. Diesel, he and his family, we look forward to seeing him back, hopefully, and well. We know he's got a long road to go, but man, this kind of rocked our world over the weekend, man.
Yeah, he shot me a message. I think it was midday Saturday, and it just grinds everything that you're doing to a halt. It's like, man, this is real life. So many of the things that we do on a daily basis, aren't necessary. They're just, for our own enjoyment, for our own fun, for our own advancement, whatever it might be. But this is when it gets real. And this is a real life situation that Brandon and his family are going through. So, yeah, absolutely. It shakes you on a day like today to know that one of our own, a guy that has been an integral member to the team here for the past 6 months or so, and is going to be for the long term, is going through something serious like this.
Yeah, I want to look right into the YouTube camera and say this to you, Brandon. We love you, buddy. We are praying for you. We're praying for you and Cassie and your kids and your family. We know you've had a rough go of it very, very recently, and we can't wait to see you back in the building, God willing, when you are ready. But Brandon Keeler is in the ICU right now, just having had open heart surgery today. I feel awful that I missed his texts yesterday. Obviously, I wouldn't have had the phone off if I knew that was coming. Never knew that was coming. So feel real bad about that, but we're thinking about Brandon. We're praying for him. And Brandon, we're here for you and your family any way that we possibly can be. The other piece of somber news, gosh, Diesel, like, this is supposed to be like, sun and fun and highlighting the glory of South Carolina in the summer. But we also got the tremendously heartbreaking news over the weekend that a former Burns player was shot and killed, a one gunshot crime over the weekend at Culpeper Landing Apartments in Duncan on Saturday night. Teenager and former football player at a prominent upstate program is dead after a weekend shooting at an apartment complex in Spartanburg County. Upon arrival, a victim was found and was transported to an area hospital where they later died from their injuries in the shooting. And the victim was identified as 18-year-old Richard Wright. Wright was a recent graduate of Burns High School and played DB and wide receiver for the Rebel football program. Diesel, there was another 19-year-old that was shot once and died and was found in an alleyway by where my wife recently moved from. She moved out of that place in December, and there was another 19-year-old that was found dead here over the weekend as well. And I don't know what the hell is going on. You know, I don't know what's going on. I don't have the answers to any of this, other than to say that this is it's just catastrophic. And like, I feel like we all kind of go through our day-to-day life, right, in some sort of state of happy-go-lucky, some sort of state of obliviousness, right? You know, I can be a little bit type A, but largely, folks, you know, like my head does not exist in a super serious place all the time. And it just like, you know, getting news like this back to back, it just kind of rocks you to your core. So obviously you guys know that we carry Burns High School football, and we love and really value that partnership. And it's devastating. It's just devastating to hear this. So I know, like, you guys tune into the show for entertainment and laughs and all these things you come to love about Offsides with Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. And we're totally going off script on you here this afternoon. But Diesel, I just know no other way.
Yeah, I mean, we're never that show who shies away from things. We always tackle them head on. So you know, that's what we have to do.
That is exactly what we have to do. Folks, 71307 is where you can get to us on the text line today. Just a different day, man. Just a different day. A different day here on the show. If you guys want to get in your thoughts and prayers, if you want to send a message to Brandon, I will make sure the message gets to Brandon. You guys, you know, what are your impressions of Brandon, having heard him on our station? You know, filling in on this show, filling in on the Rob Brown show. What are your impressions of Brandon? Is there a message you would like me to get to him and his family? Send it to us on the text line 71307. We would be happy to get that over to Brandon. All right, my friends. 844-FAN phone, 844-FANFONE is the way you can get to us on the show. Let's get to Mongo, who is up first here on Offsides today. Mongo, good to talk to you. Wish it was under different circumstances.
Yeah. First of all, my thoughts go out to Brandon. Fight, dude. Fight. We love you. And it's going to be okay. Richard. So when my son was 9 years old, 8, 9, he started playing football for the D5 youth over here in Duncan. The first team he played for, one of the coaches didn't show up for whatever reason. So they asked me, they said, you know about football? I said, yeah, sure. They said, well, we need a D-line coach. I'm your guy. So I became, de facto D-line coach. That's when I met Richard. The second practice, there was some kids bullying my son. Eli was a little smaller, and Richard jumped in and protected him, and he was a much better athlete than Eli, but he always pushed him. He always, come on, Eli, let's do this, let's do that. And the kid was just so talented, man, and such a good kid. And my son stopped playing ball after about 4 years, and Richard still played at Burns and was great. He ended up playing DB. Anytime he saw me in town, it wasn't, hey, Chris, it was, hey, Coach. And him and Eli stayed friends. My son ended up, after the pandemic, he ended up going online school full time, and him and Eli still stayed in touch. And God, man, he was such a good kid. And, next week he was going to move into his dorm at Benedict College. And, I don't know specifics on what happened. It doesn't matter specifics. He's gone, and that's all that matters. And there's a mother and a father and teammates and friends and family and that are missing a part of their life. And, it's just devastating.
Mongo, I've
got a picture. The last season I coached, all those kids took a team picture and they all autographed it. And that's in my bedroom. It's one of my most prized possessions. And not being able to see that kid at the gym or at the grocery store, hey, Coach, dap me up. It sucks. And right now, when I get off the phone with you guys, I'm going to go home and tell my son because he doesn't know yet. He's not on social media. He refuses to be on social media.
Smart man.
He's 18. He's fixing to start nursing school in the fall, and this one's gonna hurt. And I, as a father, it's my job to help him through this. But God, man, I guess the only message I have, if there's any young men out there listening, stop killing each other, man. Stop.
Mongo, can I ask you this? Do you have by chance any knowledge of any details surrounding this tragic event from the weekend? Was this somebody he knew? Was there some sort of altercation? Are there any details that are known?
None that are known. I'm not at liberty to say anything, Mark. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I do know the people that did it are in jail. I know they were caught, and it was. All I've heard is scuttlebutt. That's it. Like I say, the only thing I know is Richard passed away at the hospital, and that the perpetrators were caught. And as a matter of fact, one of them had a bond hearing today. So I'm sorry to get upset on the air, man.
It's all right, man. It's all right. It's like I'd question if you didn't, honestly. I think we're all feeling a little bit shocked, and our community is feeling a little bit rocked today. And then there was another 19-year-old that was found shot outside of an alleyway in Greenville, and it's like, what the hell's going on? Like, what is going on? Are all these things related? Are these related? Are these isolated incidents?
I think it's isolated.
Yeah.
I don't think they were connected.
Okay.
I will tell you real quick. I know you probably got to go to break or whatever, but Richard, I'll tell you what kind of kid he was. So he played wide receiver for us, and so fast, man, just lightning quick. And I can remember me and the coaches, our hearts used to drop because when he ran, he would run with the ball in one hand and hold it out to the guys chasing him and pull it in from him, play keep away with it. And it used to drive us crazy because we'd be like, man, you're going to fumble the ball. Stop. You're so fast. You're going to fumble. And he never did. He never fumbled, but that was his thing. He'd always run with that ball in one hand and hold it out at him like, come get it, come get it. It was just so funny, man. But such a good kid.
Oh, man, I am so sorry for the community's loss, Mongo, for your loss, for the loss of your son. And I am so sorry to the Wright family for their loss as well, man. I appreciate your call and your thoughts during this very, very difficult time, man. And, please know that Richard and his family are very, very much on our minds right now.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good day.
All right, Mongo, you do the same, man. You do the same. And guys, look, sometimes, we're here to have the words for these things. And sometimes this stuff just seems like it doesn't make any sense and you don't understand it. And why would this happen to somebody who is so young? And guys, I'll honestly never forget this. Okay. But about, let me see here, 12 years ago. All right. About 12 years ago, the tradition that I grew up with at my house, right? I always slept later than my mom and dad. They were up at 6 a.m. I was up by like 9 or 10 a.m. And my old man would put the newspaper at my place at the breakfast table. And my parents were great, right? Like they're just amazing. If they were going to go out and run an errand somewhere, they might have breakfast on the table for me. They might have a note on the table for me. Hey, Mark, looking forward to seeing you. We went out to A, B, and C, and we'll be back at this time. Enjoy breakfast. Here's the paper. And the paper would be out there. And then, it was out there every single day. The paper was always there, right? The sports section, the front page, everything. And, look, my parents got with the times too. Like they no longer get the actual newspaper delivered to their door because they already know all the news that's in it, right? They learned like we did that, man, by the time the newspaper gets to your front door, it's kind of old news. But there was one day about 12 years ago where I was home and it was over Christmas break and the paper wasn't there. And I get to the table and imagine you're used to this your whole life. The paper's there, paper's there, paper's there. What happened? Did no one get the paper today? And they said, Mark, we didn't want to give you the paper today. Can you come into the living room? We'd like to have a talk with you. And I go in and I sit down and one of my best friends from high school had been shot and killed by her husband, her estranged husband. And it was all over the front page. And so my parents didn't want to put the paper on my seat. And the first thing that I see sitting down is one of my best friends from high school. Her name was Jenny Strickland. And, she refused to get back with her ex-husband who was abusive. He went to her house and shot her, then went to daycare, picked up the kids, and there was an Amber Alert throughout all of Polk County, like helicopters and massive cars, and the guy wouldn't pull over, and they used a spike strip, and he ended up taking his own life with a bullet to the head with his kids in the back seat of the car when the cops finally got him. And, my parents didn't want me waking up seeing that. They didn't want me waking up reading that. And I value that, and I appreciate that, right? But every time there's a massive tragedy like this, I'm brought back to those experiences we each and every one of us have had with really dark moments in our lives, and that was one of them. That was certainly one of them. All right, folks, let's see here. Texter says, tell Brandon I'm praying for him and his family. Keep fighting, man. So says Spur Daddy. Let's see here. The Burns player is said to be trying to help a brother that was being attacked, and he was shot. So yeah, I don't know any details here, man. I don't know any details, but it's sad, it's tragic, it's senseless, and I don't know why we turn to guns every time people get upset. I have no idea why that happens. Folks, this is, honestly, it's Exhibit A why there's no guns in my home. There's never been any guns in my home. Doesn't mean you can't be a responsible gun owner, but I've just seen way too many times people get upset, guns lying around, now somebody's dead. I've just seen it way, way too many times. And it's heartbreaking. It's honestly heartbreaking, man. And it's hard to find the words for what to say. Richard Sharquavius Wright of Duncan, man. We're praying for you, man. And I know that that's not enough for you and your family, but at this point, it's all we can do. And we already shared with you the tragic news regarding our very own Brandon Keeler. Heart attack on Saturday night, open heart surgery today. I'm understanding that the surgery just completed and he's in the ICU. Not the way we planned on opening the show today after Friday's super fun shindig, but it is what it is, man. And we're never going to sweep anything under the rug to you here on Offsides. We'll be back after this. We're going to try to get back to some sense of normalcy. And we'll do so when Offsides continues. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. Know you got a ton of options out there. UNC Chris says, good Lord, prayers for Brandon. Keep us posted on his recovery if possible. Hope he is okay. You know, there's a reason, folks, we say we're all day to day. You remember the injury designations in sports, right? He's probable, he's questionable, he's out, he's on the IR, he's day to day. Well, as time goes on in your life, you realize we're all day to day. Every single one of us is day to day. One of my, I've got many favorite things about my wife, but one of my most favorite is that every single day she tells me she loves me, right? And it makes you kind of realize, I've never asked her why she does that, but I imagine somewhere along the lines, it's like if something were to happen to either one of us on any given day, I've heard that day that she loves me. There's never a day that goes by where she doesn't say that to me in some way. Last night, I told her that the worst day with her is better than the best day before I met her. You know, better than the best day without her. So guys, yeah, some somber openings to the show today here on the Fan Upstate, and your thoughts are welcome. We can be a place where you come to grieve and a place where you come to share your thoughts and your feelings and your concerns. But I think, our figurative flag is at half-mast today here at Odyssey Greenville because of our own Brandon Keeler and of the sad and senseless crimes that are going on in our community. 844-FAN-PHONE, that's 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show this afternoon. Let me open today with this in terms of a sports segment. Folks, I believe the LA Angels should trade Shohei Ohtani. All right. And I know this is something that's it's something that is kind of out there a little bit, right? It's not something that is conventional wisdom, but it's something I believe has to happen. And it has to happen because Shohei Ohtani is on record as saying what's most important to him is winning. He has been with the LA Angels since 2018. They've not made the playoffs once since he's been with the team. Furthermore, the Angels have the longest playoff drought in Major League Baseball. Most important thing to him is winning. He has not stated any sort of commitment to returning to the Angels in any way, shape, or form, right? You haven't heard that. You haven't gotten that vibe at all. He is about to leave the Angels. And so the Angels are in this rock and a hard place spot where, if they trade Shohei Ohtani, it's an admission that they failed. They're we couldn't keep the best player in baseball. No one wants to take that PR hit. No matter what they do here, folks, the Angels need to bite the most bitter PR bullet ever, and they've got to do so right now. There is a, get out of jail free card if you don't trade him and if he leaves you. Because, hey, then look, we got left. He left us. We tried to keep him. You save more face if he leaves you. The Cleveland Cavaliers, Dan Gilbert, saved face when LeBron left them because they did everything they could to keep him, right? But they saved face because, well, look, it's not our fault. It's LeBron's. He left us. If you trade the player, then it's on you, right? Then you couldn't make it work. And the Angels absolutely, positively have to do that. Why? Because they're about to lose him for nothing. So you bite the PR bullet. You said, yes, it did not work with Shohei Ohtani here. We've got to move on. We've got to make a play. We've got to try to get better for the future. The Angels are 500. They're a 500 team. How many teams can be 500 or mediocre without the best athlete who has ever played the sport? How many people? You guys know last week I shared with you my top 10 athletes in sports history, and Shohei Ohtani was number 3 on my list. It's number 3 overall on my list. Now, Diesel objected to that, but I think he's the best athlete that baseball has ever seen.
Dylan on the YouTube Chat asks an interesting question. Who's more exciting, Shohei Ohtani or Ellie De La Cruz?
Good point. Good point. It was not but this weekend, Diesel, that Ellie De La Cruz did a little something in a baseball game that we have not seen before. Here's the highlight from this weekend. Okay, so we've got a highlight from Ellie De La Cruz right here.
Pitch down and in, fade throw. There's no chance. 2 steals.
De La Cruz had already looked a couple of times at Brian Anderson, knowing that if he got a jump,
He's going home. The throw. He stole home. The most thrilling man in baseball stole second, third, and home.
JD Wyatt says he stole 3 bases in an inning. Not only did he steal 3 bases in an inning during the same at-bat.
It's incredible. And he's been super fun to watch, and he's single-handedly resurrected the Cincinnati Reds. And, certainly he's up there in the excitement ratings, but Ohtani is number 1. So let's open with this question for you guys, all right? You're Artie Moreno. You're the owner of the LA Angels. You are the first Mexican-born American pro sports owner in the history of American professional sports. And you've got this freaking unicorn that has never existed previously. So my question to you is, do you keep Shohei Ohtani? Do you trade Shohei Ohtani? Or do you try to get Shohei Ohtani help? As of right now, folks, 6 teams make the playoffs in the AL and the NL. The Angels have a 12.7% chance to make the postseason. We're now at the All-Star break. I see no reason to believe that anything is going to change. Do you just roll the dice? Do you try to add to that team because, hell, it's our only shot to keep Shohei Ohtani? We've got to try to make a run. They are 4 games out of the final playoff berth. Do you try to make a run? Do you try to make it happen? I'm moving on. I think Shohei's seen enough to know that we're not winning here. Artie Moreno, this owner, the first line about him on his Wikipedia page, it says he's an American businessman. And he's run the Angels like a businessman. And I feel like in order to win the World Series or to win at the highest level in professional sports, what you need, folks, more than anything else, is an owner with passion, an owner with drive, an owner who views it as just more than a business. I'll never forget this. 2019, I just moved here. And I got into it on Twitter with MLB writer, MLB insider Keith Law. He's got over 500,000 Twitter followers, is now with The Athletic. And he was coming at me saying I didn't know what I was talking about because the Angels gave Mike Trout a 12-year, $426 million deal. And I said, they're never going to win anything with that. That's not their business model. And he said, what, are you supposed to let Mike Trout go? That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And he and I were going back and forth at it. And you might imagine that I was the guy in the crosshairs then because he's got 500,000 followers. All those people, all of his fans are coming at me. Well, who won that argument? Mike Trout has never won a playoff game. All right? Never won a playoff game since that deal. Who won the argument? Artie Moreno never went above $200 million in payroll until this year. This year, they have the 6th largest payroll in baseball. They're at $204 million. But what he does is he blows his whole wad on 2 players, and then the rest of the roster sucks, and he plays the woe is me, we're broke card, and he doesn't put players around him. And we're seeing this, folks, right after the Atlanta Braves have just set a record for the most players from a single team making an all-star game, tied the record with 8. Those 8 players are making a combined $83 million. Those players are making $10 million per player for this year. For what Shohei Ohtani is going to command $60 million a year, if you have the Braves financial plan, you have 6 all-stars, or you have Shohei Ohtani. 6 all-stars. Folks, You may not agree. You may not sign on to this, but I'm telling you right now, they need to trade Shohei Ohtani.
I want to know how agents are going to start pitching it to their superstar clients. You have to take less money if you want to win. You have to. And you'll look at situations like Bryce Harper, like Shohei Ohtani, and other players like them. These guys with these mega contracts that the team can't afford to put any other talent around them. Like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have more than life-changing money? Or would you rather have life-changing money, titles, fame, attention, all the things that you got into baseball for in the first place? Did you get into baseball to be rich, or did you get into baseball to win World Series?
And so, Diesel, the Braves have this incredible financial plan where a couple years before they hit free agency, they throw an 8-year, $100 million deal at their own players. And $12 million a year is great. But these same players would be worth $30 million a year on the open market. Do you want to take $12 million a year now or roll the dice and get $30 million a year in 2 years? And all the Braves players are taking the money. They have Ronald Acuna Jr. on the most team-friendly deal ever. The Angels couldn't do that with Shohei Ohtani. And I'm saying he needs to be traded. And I want to see from you guys, yay or nay, via the text line, via the phone line. Would you trade Shohei Ohtani? The trade deadline in MLB is August 1st. You trade him by that point, or you can't trade him after that, and then he becomes a free agent in the offseason. He becomes a free agent. I'm telling you, you're losing him for nothing. Put yourselves in the positions of the LA Angels. Think of the PR black eye that you are about to take if you trade him. Think of the PR black eye you're about to take if you lose him for nothing. Their record is 45-46. They are fourth place in a 5-team AL West. They're going nowhere fast. And I'll never forget the words of former Orlando Magic general manager John Weisbrod, who said, it's not difficult at all to figure out if you're good or bad at your job. Just open up the newspaper and look at where your team is in the standings. And then you have the answer. They stink. And I'm pretty sure they could stink without Shohei Ohtani. Spread that money around, understand their budgetary concerns, and make it happen. Guess who's paying less on their payroll than the LA Angels? The Atlanta Braves. How are they doing? Guess who's paying less on their payroll than all but 2 teams in baseball? The Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays, their entire payroll is $65 million, or about what Shohei Ohtani is going to make per year in his next deal. The Tampa Bay Rays have the best record in the American League, and the Braves just took 2 out of 3 from them over the weekend. All right, folks, 71307 on the text line. All the time. See, all the time, like Diesel, you've heard this, you've seen this. Hey, you guys you need to talk baseball. You need to talk MLB on the show. Got to talk MLB on the show. Well, the reality is, folks, we measure engagement by the text line. Okay? The text line. That is 71307. Starting your text with the word fan, and away you go. If we're talking MLB and you're not engaging with us on MLB, we're not going to be talking MLB for long. Okay? Because in the end, we're going to talk about what gets us the greatest amount of engagement. If you want MLB, engage with the MLB content that we give you, or we'll go right back to the content that does get the engagement. All right? 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663 as the number to get to us on the show. Coming up next, I was more impressed that he didn't play well. And I'll tell you what I mean by that next. Here on Offsides, we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. here from the Fan Upstate studios. So Victor Wembanyama had his debut over the weekend. Friday night, had his debut. 9 points, 8 rebounds, 5 blocks. Shot 2 for 13 from the field, which is not good. So why was I more impressed with him than if he had played well? Well, here's why. Because the true greats, when they don't have their fastball, they find ways to impact the game in other ways, right? Victor Wembanyama did not have his shot. And I can tell you guys, and I've seen enough to tell you via the highlight reel and so much more, he's going to be a top 10 player in the NBA within the next 3 or 4 years. How can you say that, Mark Ryan? The kid's 19 years old. He's a string bean. Yeah, he is. He's also 7'4", can handle the ball like a guard, and has a 3-point shot. The NBA has never seen anything like what Victor Wembanyama is about to give them. And I know you've heard that before. We never saw Dirk Nowitzki before. We never saw LeBron James before. But Victor Wembanyama is very much a one of one. When your height is 7 feet or taller, the players that we've seen don't have the dexterity, don't have the agility to handle the ball, to play all 5 positions. This guy is 7'4" with 0 clumsy. He's not clumsy at all. He's not a stiff. He's not a George Murasan. He's not a Boban Bogdanovic. He's not any of these guys. He is one of one. He is a guard in a 7'4" frame, and he's going to impact the game in a ton of ways. So the other night, he went 9 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 blocks. Okay, 5 blocks. Then last night, he goes for 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Second game in the Summer League, right? And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm blown away that he's still greatly impacting the game, even though he doesn't have his shot. And another thing that I love, and I wish we saw this more from the American players, but we don't. Wembanyama was on the sideline cheering on his teammates, high-fiving all of his teammates. He was really into the game. Like, the leadership markers were off the chart really early on. And despite the fact that many of these guys are never going to make an NBA roster. And Wembanyama was there, high-fiving him, into the game, pumping his fists, the passion, the hunger, all of that was there. He played poorly, and I couldn't have been more impressed.
All of the great players elevate the players around them. It seems as if in the NBA, a lot of the great players just want everybody else around them to elevate them. Right? It's a superstar-driven league. Every sport has superstars. Let's not get that wrong. Every sport has them. But Tom Brady was able to win all those titles with subpar talent around him because he elevated them. They didn't elevate him. He elevated them. But how many times do you watch LeBron James play on the many teams that LeBron has been on, and you feel like the other 3 or 4 guys on the court, their job is to rebound and give the ball to LeBron? Like, he doesn't elevate the players around him. They elevate him. And hopefully we'll see a different side of that kind of athlete, of the star athlete in Victor.
And I think he's off to a fantastic start, man. I really do. I really wasn't, like, again, if you told me he's 2 for 13, would I be impressed? I'd say no. But I watched the game. I love the leadership. I love the 5-block shots. I love the passion. I love the encouraging of the teammates, guys that might never make an NBA roster. I loved what I saw, and then he had a much better game. 27 points, 12 rebounds, 3 block shots last night. The guy's got the it factor, man, and he's got a game. He's over 7 feet with no clumsy. And literally, folks, like, you can count on one hand the number of players in the history of basketball that have been over 7 feet tall with no clumsy whatsoever. That's Victor Wembanyama. He's about to be one of the 10 best players in the NBA, and that's going to happen sooner rather than later. All right, coming up next on the show, there is a brand new concern for Clemson football, and the Clemson faithful are starting not to be so quiet about this. That, my friends, is next, and this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. this afternoon. Fantastic to have you guys with us. So earlier today, the University of Florida. All right, look, guys, I'm not going to do this thing. I know there's a lot of Clemson fans in the audience. I'm not going to do this thing where I'm like grinning and flexing. Florida gets 4-star offensive tackle Fletcher Westphal. The 6'8", 330-pound offensive tackle from Leesburg, Virginia, chose the Gators over Clemson. He wrote, let's get to work, go Gators. And he's committed to the University of Florida. And what I didn't expect from this is for Clemson fans kind of in unison to throw up their hands in frustration. I saw Blake M. on Twitter say, for the love of God, Dabo, stop trying to hand out the fewest amounts of scholarships to try to make the kids feel special. Dabo has handed out the fewest scholarships forever, right? Because he doesn't want the kids to feel like dime a dozen. You know, on the list of fewest scholarship offers, Clemson is always one of the fewest that offers, right? What happens when the few you offered go somewhere else? You end up having to settle for a crap player because all the good ones are committed. Though that's the word of Blake M. on Twitter. This is from a good dude who I followed for quite a long time, Clemson Addict on Twitter. Okay, any of you know this guy in person, Clemson Addict? He writes, we got to step our NIL money up. Dabo keeps losing on these guys because he is doing it the way you're supposed to do it. And he is one of the few following the rules that the NCAA can't even enforce. So you're seeing a little bit of frustration, I think, that Dabo is following the rules when nobody else is following the rules. It's hard to follow the rules when no one else is following the rules. And, you know, there's starting to be a concern in and around Clemson that, look, man, you know, is the Dabo way, is it a little bit outdated? You know, and I'm not saying, that's not to say, folks, that it's time to move on, okay? But does Dabo need to get with the times in certain areas, right? Does he need to get with the times in certain areas that he might be falling behind in, right? Is it that time right now? Is that where we're at? Because a lot of these guys are choosing Florida. I spoke to some Florida people last week. I said, what's going on with the Gators? Like, how do you explain this windfall? You know what they told me? They said they've gotten their NIL ship organized. They've gotten it organized. And I said, well, how much are these kids getting? And nobody tells you, nor do they have the information of each individual deal. But the 4-stars at the University of Florida, let's just say, Diesel, they're all making 6 figures. The 4-stars that commit to the University of Florida. Florida has gotten its NIL ship organized.
I wonder when we're going to see a conspiracy investigation between a recruiting service like 24/7 on 3. I'm not throwing any aspersions on any of those sites. I'm just saying they're the big ones. And an NIL collective throwing more and more money at somebody based on the number of stars they have. Like the number of stars, oftentimes, and I understand when you get up into the high-level players, they've been scouted. But the number of stars, oftentimes, is based just on who is offering them. So you'll have a guy who might commit to an FCS team, and he'll either be a no-star or a 2-star guy. Then all of a sudden, he starts picking up G5 offers, and he's a 3-star guy. And then he gets a one-off offer from a Power 5 program. Now he's a 4-star guy. Like, we're seeing more and more 4- and 5-star guys than we've ever seen. And collectives are basing the amount of money that they're paying these guys based off of the number of stars they have. It's very easy to see a correlation and the potential for foul play.
The question for you guys is it time for Dabo to update his policies? Is it time for Dabo to realize that, look, all the new technology, he's got to use it. Diesel, Shane Beamer uses Twitter to his benefit. sometimes to our detriment, but he uses Twitter to his benefit. Dabo's not on Twitter.
Dabo's on Threads.
Is he on Threads?
No, I'm being facetious.
Yeah. I didn't know.
But one of the million, he could be one of the millions of people who have said, screw Twitter, I'm going to Threads.
Yeah, Dabo's not on Twitter. So, in terms of fishing where the fish are, he's not there. He hands out very few scholarships. He hones in on a few guys, right? He is very much a quality over quantity guy. But then his guys are going elsewhere where they're getting paid.
I would say I need to see results before you ask a championship winning coach to change what he does. That's called chasing. That's chasing what other programs are doing without knowing if it works. At some programs it does. At Alabama's, at those type of programs, yeah, it works. But Billy Napier in Florida hadn't won a damn thing. Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M hadn't won a damn thing. They throw all this money to get these big-time recruits, but you can't win anything once you got them. So far be it to say that the policy is outdated, that the policy doesn't work, when we've seen the policy not work at places that advertise how much they use it.
And the other point of this is, like, Clemson right now is 12th in the 2024 recruiting rankings. Last year, Clemson was 11th in the 2023 recruiting rankings. These are the 2 years where name, image, and likeness has really exploded, right? The year before that, they were 10th in 2022. In 2021, they were 5th. And in 2020, Clemson was 3rd. So the 3 years before NIL blew up, Clemson's average recruiting class ranking was 6th, right? Blowing up with NIL, Clemson's average recruiting rating is 11.5. So they've gone from 6th to 11.5 while this is going on. And, Dabo said, I'm not against name, image, and likeness. I'm not against some of this stuff. I don't think he's against players earning money. I think he's against players being employees very, very much. And let's just say I don't think he's on the front foot in terms of paying players money.
Texter says, for 6 figures, I'd go play for the 5th or 6th best team in the SEC instead of a perennial champion. Shot fired at the Florida Gators.
There it is. Look, I don't know if that's a shot, Diesel. I mean, I think that's pretty accurate to where we are right now, right? 5th or 6th might be a compliment to where we are right now. I think we got the worst quarterback situation in the SEC, but it brings me back to a question that I've been pondering for some time. And, I was looking at this guy, Clemson Addict Diesel, who says we've got to step our NIL money up. Dabo keeps losing on these guys because he's doing it the way you're supposed to do it. We got to step our NIL money up. We're now at the place, right, where you and I have a responsibility to pay for these guys.
I'm not.
You're not?
No, I'm not. This is going to be the best con that college football has ever pulled, is convincing fans that they need to slap more money down on the barrelhead to get talent for them. Like, Clemson Athletics makes a ridiculous amount of money. This is a metric measurement here, a bleep ton of money. Clemson has a bleep ton of money, yet they're still convincing you that you need to throw your money down on the barrel to get them better athletes. It'd be one hell of a con if they can pull it off. And I'm not saying it's Clemson. I'm saying it's all the big programs, all the big collectives. These programs make money. South Carolina gets $50 million a year from the SEC, but instead of spending that money to pay their players, they have collectives formed. Now you do it. Now you do it for them. That's ridiculous. I'm never putting money down into a collective. That's one of the dumbest things any fan could ever do, because the player owes you absolutely nothing. You put money in their pocket and they owe you absolutely nothing. They walk away when they want. You get nothing back out of it. It is a dumb investment. Stop putting your money into collectives.
So, Diesel, the reality is, I got some information you may not know. In 2021, Clemson Athletics profited $8 million for the whole year. That was their profit margin. that did not rank them among the top 25 universities in America in terms of profit margin. Why is that? They don't have a huge alumni base. They're in a small town. I don't, you could look at the gross, Diesel, and you could say, yeah, Clemson made $58 million or $70 million, but the net for them was only $8 million.
But you're talking about athletics as a whole,
right?
You have to break this down sport by sport.
Correct.
How much did Clemson
Correct.
football profit?
Correct. So it's incredibly expensive, as you know, to run the program. You also know that the ACC doesn't make the money that the SEC does. And so the reality is, Diesel, I'm with you in the sense that no, I'm not paying. No, I'm not opening my wallet. And I have to accept that my team may not be as good as a result of that, because NIL is a huge advantage for certain schools. Huge. Now, we'll see how it plays out. It hasn't done much for Texas A&M yet, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't done much for Miami yet, right? But they're paying money hand over fist, and a lot of big-time players. Cormani McClain, for instance, committed to Florida, then shifted to Miami for money, and then Coach Prime goes to Colorado, and he rips him from Miami. In the end, fans are realizing we got to step our NIL money up. They're tired of losing players for NIL.
Yeah, again, I'm not down with people making hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, asking people who make $30,000 to pay for their players. It's not happening. You're not getting that money from me, flat out.
And I also, folks, just so you know, have paid diddly squat to Florida's collective. I will pay diddly squat to Florida's collective. However, Diesel, I will smile when I see that somebody donated $3 million to the Gator Collective. I will smile when I see that, because that means the team is going to be better. And it's just the nature of the beast today, guys. Do you guys feel a financial responsibility for your team's success now in college football? Do you feel like whether they have the talent or don't get the talent is largely up to you? With South Carolina and Nick Harbor, never forget that Shane Beamer got a call in the middle of the night, and it was from Nick Harbor at 3 a.m. And Nick Harbor told Shane Beamer, sorry, coach, I got an offer that I can't pass up. And I'm paraphrasing, and Shane Beamer said on signing day, he said, look, we received a very dark phone call from Nick Harbor, and things were not good there for a few hours. We were not in a good way. We were not in a good place. So what changed? What changed? We've spoken to folks about this. What changed is that the Gamecocks came in with an NIL offer that was close enough to the other offers he was receiving that got Nick Harbor to South Carolina. South Carolina beat out some deep-pocketed donors. But that's where we were, folks. That's what we were dealing with. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. Texter says, I don't think Dabo is going to be on Threads. Threads is about to be sued. Who cares? I'm so over this stuff. Elon Musk and all this stuff. He's ruining Twitter.
I've loved watching all the people coming to Elon Musk's defense. Oh, they're stealing something from Elon. You can't steal it from Elon because Elon didn't come up with it. Elon didn't invent Twitter. Stop acting like Twitter's only been around for the last 6 months since Elon bought it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Diesel, there's another thing that Elon's doing that you're going to have the same feeling that you do about NIL. You're not paying it. You're not sticking your head in my wallet. Do you know, Diesel, how like Elon is trying to make it so that everyone has to pay the $10 a month? Like he's taking away features and
limiting the number of tweets you can see every day.
Yeah, you got a rate limit on tweets that you can see every single day.
That might be the best thing that ever happened to Twitter is limiting the number of tweets I can see every day.
Right. And so he's taken away your blue check mark, and now you got to pay for the blue check mark. And those who pay can tweet longer. They can tweet multiple paragraphs in one tweet. And so he's doing all this stuff. And like guys like Diesel and myself are just digging our heels in and like, no, we're not paying for it.
Never paying for Twitter.
I'm not paying for that. We had it for free for 12 years. You're not going to suddenly charge me something for something that has always been free. It's just not going to happen. Never going to sign on to that. He's ruining Twitter slowly but surely, and a lot of folks are switching to Threads, that new social media.
Yeah, I'm betting. I'm wondering the number of people who, if Threads doesn't take off, and I downloaded it over the weekend just to see what it is. It's exactly like Twitter, except you can't send DMs and you can't post GIFs. I think that's the only two differences that I've really noticed. But all of the big Twitter accounts, all of the massive 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 follower pages and Twitter accounts that I've ever seen, they're all on Threads. They are all on Threads, and they're all massive already. So and they're also on Twitter. They're still posting their content on Twitter. They're posting it everywhere.
And Threads is Mark Zuckerberg?
Threads, yes. Threads is they're calling it an Instagram app, but people don't realize that Facebook owns Instagram. So, I mean, they're trying to create that degree of separation because so many people are like kind of turning anti-Facebook and have been for a long time. But this is a Facebook-owned product because Instagram owns it. Best part is, just let anybody know who's interested in doing it. If you already have an Instagram, it just ports over all of your Instagram following and followers. So all the accounts that you follow on Instagram, boom, you instantly follow. It takes like 2 seconds to set up.
Texter says, I don't think, let's see here. I think Clemson is at a huge disadvantage in the NIL game. Small market, and Dabo does not want to play ball. Texter says, rich programs claiming poverty. I'm shocked. Texter says, we're going to build the wall and the fans are going to pay for it. Sincerely, every college football team. This reeks of shady televangelist asking for money. No thanks. Texter says, JD agrees with Diesel. No chance my $30,000 salary feels any kind of obligation to pay for their football team. Texter says, this cannot be sustainable. I didn't give money to my school when they started calling the second I graduated, and that's for academic scholarships. You think I'm going to give it for football players to line their wallets?
I spent somewhere in the range of $35,000, and my college tuition was cheap because I was in state and I didn't have to pay for books. I got to rent my books. So I spent $35,000 on college, and they have not gotten a dime from me since then.
I'm not very valuable to the University of Florida, Diesel. They get literally nothing from me. I get the mailings all the time. I never send in squat. I feel like they got enough. I don't know. I purchase officially licensed product, and that's all I'm willing to donate, a texter says. Texter says, leaving one evil billionaire for another. What could go wrong? Must be talking about Twitter there and what's going on there.
Hey, I would happily leave both, Texter, if we weren't required to do it for our jobs.
Well, Diesel, look, 92% of Americans spend an hour or more listening to the radio each week.
Yeah.
77% of Americans are not on Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, I know there's this like real trend, like, man, if you're not on Twitter, you're not doing it right and all that stuff. And that's because a lot of the podcasts, Twitter is the only platform that they're on. It's the only place where they get any run or any pull or any play,
Sure.
Right? Realize though, folks, I would say this to anyone doubting radio. Reports of our demise have been greatly exaggerated. We still have a greater percent of listenership from the American population than YouTube, than cable television, than Facebook, than Twitter, than everybody. You know how many people are on Facebook? Half the population. 92% of people spend an hour or more listening to radio each week. It's just our job to engage you. It's our job to get you.
I'm going to give you one little strategy to anybody who wants to reduce their social media usage without cutting it out entirely. Just remove it off the home screen from your phone. It's that simple. It gets out. You're like, oh no, it'll still be in my apps drawer or on the apps list. Yeah, it'll still be there. So you'll still have access to it. But trust me, when it's not on your home screen, when it's not right there, see, like I have my favorite app. I think the app that I'm on most is Twitter. When I open up my phone, Twitter is right there where my thumb is every time. So it's the first thing I touch every single time. All you got to do is move that off of your home screen. It makes it just a little bit harder to see it. You don't see the little icon for notifications. You have to take one more step to get to the app to open it. Believe me, that will reduce your usage of these apps by 25% or more.
I have had Diesel, the Twitter app, off of my main screen for years.
Yeah.
It's the best thing I could possibly
Fantastic, right?
Best thing I could possibly do. All right, folks. We have got the very latest Sweet 16 matchup in our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket, and it's coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Excited to share this with you. The Sweet 16 of our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket rolls on, my friends. And let me tell you, I thought he was vulnerable after round one. He gave me a big STFU after round one because of what he did this time around. Folks, big time win, comfortable win. I was hopeful for Stephen Davis after he upset the 4-seed John McKissick in round one. But in the Sweet 16, Stephen Davis got Kevin Garnett. And let's just say, folks, it was not pretty. Kevin Garnett won by virtually 3-1 over Stephen Davis. So reports of Kevin Garnett's reputation demise in the Upstate, second time I've used this reference on the show today, are greatly exaggerated. Kevin Garnett moves on to the Elite Eight of the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket, where he's going to have his hands full because he's going to get the winner of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and David Pearson, the 2-3 matchup in that region. All right, let's get to today's matchup. It is out of the Hall of Fame region, my friends, and it is a Clemson and South Carolina affair. The winner of this matchup is going to get Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Elite Eight, the Upstate's favorite athlete matchup. It is today 2-seed DeAndre Hopkins against 3-seed Michael Roth. Isn't this juicy? Isn't this special? Michael Roth is a national championship winning pitcher from the South Carolina Gamecocks. Had a debut in 2013 for the LA Angels. Didn't have a lengthy career in MLB. Played in part of 3 seasons, but is a storied legend. Attended Riverside High School in Greer, South Carolina. Also played for the school's basketball team at Riverside. Was named a high school All-American. Was a Rawlings preseason American in baseball. And, of course, he is a national champion. The Gamecocks repeated as champions in 2011. Roth becoming the second pitcher to start in 2 College World Series deciding games. And look, a national champion with the Gamecocks. All right, a national champion. 2-time national champion with the South Carolina Gamecocks. So the Gamecocks baseball hero, all right, the person possibly principally responsible for the Gamecocks winning 2 national championships against DeAndre Hopkins of the Clemson Tigers. Now, there's no doubt that where DeAndre wins is he's got more success at the professional level, right? No doubt about it. He is a 3-time first-team All-Pro. He is a 5-time Pro Bowler. And DeAndre Hopkins is probably an NFL Hall of Famer. He has 11,298 receiving yards to his credit all time. Was a first-round draft pick, went to Daniel High School, went to Clemson, as you know. But at the college level anyway, you know, Clemson did not win a national championship with DeAndre Hopkins there. Michael Roth, all right, the description here is incredible. Roth enrolled at the University of South Carolina, where he played college baseball for the Gamecocks. Roth served as a left-handed specialist in the Gamecocks bullpen and also a reserve first baseman before his start at the College World Series in 2010 in the national semifinal. The sophomore pitched a shutout to send the Tigers. Well, let's see. Roth then pitched the second game of the 3-game national finals against UCLA, where despite a no decision, the Gamecocks won the game and the 2010 World Series. With only 4 starts to his name heading into the 2011 season, Roth compiled a 14-11 win-loss record, a 1.06 earned run average, 112 strikeouts in 145 innings, pitched across 21 games, led all starting pitchers in ERA, finishing second in the nation, to just behind Cody Martin of Gonzaga University, and they repeated as national champions in 2011. Roth became just the second pitcher to start in 2 College World Series deciding games, following Michael Stutz in 2006 and 2007. He was named to the College World Series All-Tournament team. He pitched a 1.17 ERA in 5 starts, was named a first-team All-American by Baseball America and a third-team All-American by the Louisville Slugger, was a Golden Spikes Award semifinalist, and College Baseball Insider's National Player of the Year. So essentially, folks, the ultimate college baseball player, principally responsible for 2 national championships at South Carolina, versus a guy in DeAndre Hopkins who's been a far better pro than Michael Roth, but did not, achieve national champion certified statue status that Michael Roth did. What is your vote, ladies and gentlemen? It is now time for you to get them in. 71307 on the text line is where you can vote. Start your vote. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. 71307. Start your text with the word fan and send us your votes, DeAndre Hopkins or Michael Roth. Diesel, I do not know that we can rely on our fans to vote objectively here. They're going to vote one way or another. But I'll tell you, Diesel, I'm going Michael Roth. And I'm going Michael Roth here because in our field, with what we do, Clemson and South Carolina are 1-2 in popularity in our jobs. And Michael Roth accomplished more at the level that matters most to our job in this matchup. DeAndre Hopkins, a better pro, no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. But the NFL finishes second to college sports here. Michael Roth was better on that level, more accomplished, more awarded, more adorned on that level. So I'm going Michael Roth. What say you?
Man, that is a hard one. It is success at the college level with a lack thereof at the pro level, or a relative lack of success at the college level and a lot of success in the pros. I look at it now at this point of who is taking the local names, the local teams, the local colleges, their colleges' names farther in their careers. And I'm going to say it's DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to say it's DeAndre Hopkins. You can't lead the club in the tub, and Michael Roth's career is in the tub. And DeAndre Hopkins just keeps getting headlines. So I'm going to go Hopkins.
Michael Roth was not really an MLB pitcher. He closed his MLB career with an ERA of 8.50. That is not good. But he's a college hero. He's a college legend. And college sports are number one right here. So this is the first one Diesel and I have been split on in a while. I'm going Roth. Diesel is going Hopkins. Which side is going to win, my friends? DeAndre Hopkins or Michael Roth? If you are hearing this right now, please text us your vote. Open your phone. Open the text screen. Put in the number 71307. Hit enter. Okay, that'll bring you to the text screen. Then you write the word FAN, F-A-N, and you give us your pick. Michael Roth, DeAndre Hopkins. Which way are you going? We've got Chris Phillips on our ACC and SEC team preview series, previewing the South Carolina Gamecocks for the 2023 season, and we'll do that next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. On Dabo, perhaps falling behind with name, image, and likeness at Clemson. A texter says the sad thing is these dollars are essentially going to keep other programs afloat. If these collectives don't compete for these players and in their football programs relative, then all these other programs will be the first to be chopped out, not football. So says UNC Chris. All right, we've got our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket, Sweet 16 matchup. It is the most storied, decorated player in Gamecock baseball history, Michael Roth, against DeAndre Hopkins from Clemson. All right. How about this as a matchup in the Sweet 16? DeAndre Hopkins from Daniel High School, Michael Roth from Riverside High School in Greer. And Michael Roth really had no MLB career. None. He was just not an MLB pitcher. But he did as much at the college level as one person could possibly do. On that, texter says, give me Michael Roth. Texter says, Michael Roth pitched against him in high school and is one of my favorite Gamecocks. Don't even need the description. So says J.D. Wyatt. Spur Daddy says Michael Roth. Texter says DeAndre Hopkins. Madcraft says D-Hop, dog, no question. Texter says Hopkins. Texter says Michael Roth. Texter says hometown hero Michael Roth. Texter says Nuke. Texter says definitely voting for Hopkins. No clue who the other dude is. Well, maybe our next guest can educate him. So says Joey. Texter says Michael Roth because those two baseball championships mean a lot to me. South Carolina was close to having 3 in a row. If they had Roth, they probably would have gotten it. Joining us right now as a continuation of our SEC and ACC team preview series. Today, the preview is on the Gamecock football team. Is our Gamecock insider, Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show, who joins us each and every Monday at this time. Chris, always do appreciate the time, man. Good to catch up with you. Can you give us the book on Michael Roth a little bit, Chris, and what he means to Gamecock baseball and why it just never worked for him at the pro baseball level?
Well, Mark, first things first, I appreciate you having me on, my friend. And when I think of Michael Roth, one word comes to mind, legend. And I know we toss that word around a lot, but it fits the description here. You know, I think back to 2010, and he was a seldom used, just sort of lefty specialist type of pitcher, which means he'd come in to face the left-handed hitter, whatever. In South Carolina, of course, 2010 College World Series, they're facing their arch rival Clemson in the College World Series, have to beat them twice to go to the finals. And lo and behold, Ray Tanner and company turn to the southpaw Michael Roth, and the story goes, you know, and we've had Michael Roth on the show, friend of the show. The story goes, though, they tell him he's pitching. They're hoping they're only going to get 2 or 3 innings out of him, whatever, just pass the ball to the next guy. He throws a complete game, and that was the birth of the Michael Roth legend that is now, because, of course, that sparked South Carolina to win the second consecutive against Clemson and then win the national championship in 2010. And, Mark, all he did was follow it up in 2011 with, I think, being the most dominant pitcher in college baseball, led the Gamecocks to back-to-back national championships, and then 2012 led them to the finals. So many people forget about that year because they didn't win the whole thing, but again, was one of the most dominant pitchers in the country. And you look at his College World Series numbers and his postseason numbers, and I mean, they will never, Mark, be touched. And I'm not saying that as a biased observer, like anybody that knows baseball. When you look at how many consecutive games the Gamecocks won in the postseason and what he did, like his College World Series, I think he still holds the record for most innings pitched in the College World Series. And I mean, you look at the numbers, they are numbers that will probably never be broken. So, I mean, a legend in every sense of the word, and back-to-back national champion, all-American caliber pitcher. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, and obviously the impact on Gamecocks baseball. Anytime you're leading your team to a national championship, that speaks for itself. In regards to the pro side of things, Mark, I would just say that, you know, Michael Roth was not a high-velocity pitcher. You know, he was a guy mid to high 80s who really his strengths are working both sides of the plate, pitching backwards, using all speed. He was your typical lefty. You know, later in his career, he went from 2 different arm slots. He'd go kind of sidearm to lefties, over the top to righties. And, you know, unfortunately, Mark, as you know, it's all about velocity in the big leagues. And I think Michael Roth also, when he got called up, because he did feature with the Angels a couple of times, but you know, the focus is all on velocity now, no matter how good your stuff is. If you don't have the velo bump in 95, 96, there are very few guys that are like sitting high 80s, low 90s that are still really making a good career. So I think that was the thing that got Michael Roth. I think he may have also dealt with some injuries. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, a Gamecock legend through and through. And I mean, I know it's the Upstate's favorite athlete, but I mean, I think one of the best of all time, certainly Michael Roth, is deserving of all the honors and then some.
All right, so let's before we get to Gamecock football preview, we're doing an ACC and SEC team preview segment every single day. Today's South Carolina. Chris, as best as possible, take the garden and black off just for a minute. I realize you wear it every day. That leaves you naked. That is very disturbing for us, okay? Very, very disturbing. However, Diesel voted DeAndre Hopkins because he said, look, Mark, he's a 5-time All-Pro. Michael Roth can't touch that. I voted Michael Roth because in our area, college sports is king. It counts for more than what you do professionally. And at the college level, Michael Roth has 2 national championships. DeAndre Hopkins has none. So it's not about, obviously DeAndre Hopkins is a better pro. I understand why Diesel voted DeAndre Hopkins. Who would get your vote between the two? Honestly, remove the garden in black. You're me. You're a Florida grad.
Right.
Who gets the vote?
For sure. No, and Mark, I think you make a great point because when you talk about who would get the vote, it really does come down to what do you value more, the collegiate career or the professional career. And DeAndre Hopkins had a great collegiate career, by the way. Let's not get it twisted. But Michael Roth won back-to-back national championships, and he was like a main piece. He was the piece that led that run. So I'd have to go with a guy that has the rings because rings talk. And I know Hopkins, won the ACC a couple of times, but we're talking about national championships. And like you mentioned, Mark, collegiate sports is what stands out more than anything in this area. And so for that reason, like when you're talking about a local legend, DeAndre Hopkins, certainly he stands out. But I mean, Michael Roth, man, winning it all. To me, that trumps everything else.
Chris Phillips joining us here on the show. Chris, we've had a conversation today. There is growing discontentment from Clemson fans that they're losing a lot of prospects. I know you're very disappointed, Chris. I don't know, like Clemson lost a prospect today to Florida, Fletcher Westphal, 4-star offensive tackle. And I don't know who you'd rather get the prospect, Clemson or Florida. That'd be like, stabbing you in the ear or stabbing you in the eye. I can't figure out which one would bother you worse, Chris. Probably Clemson would bother you worse. But Fletcher goes to Florida, and Clemson fans are saying, well, look, we really got to up our game. And Dabo's got to stop offering such few scholarships. He's got to offer more because then when his select choices choose elsewhere, we don't have much. We don't really know where to turn at that point. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to bring you into the Nick Harbor discussion, Chris, and our guesses, right? I believe we're on the same page as this, but when Shane Beamer got a negative call from Nick Harbor at 3 a.m., you and I both know, Chris, that was about money. That he had an offer that had just come in that he couldn't refuse, and he was calling to give Shane Beamer the bad news. And Chris, unlike when I do have a source, I will tell you, I have no source here. All I'm going to tell you is my hunch is Shane Beamer went into damage control mode. Nick, don't sign anything yet, buddy. Let us see what we can do. I'm going to make some calls. I'll be back to you within a few hours. That's my hunch of what happened, Chris. And when they got back to him, the money was close enough. He ends up becoming a Gamecock. Is that your understanding of Nick Harbor to South Carolina?
Well, Mark, I'm the same way as you are. I've talked to certain people, and I don't have it on 100% authority that that's the case. But, Mark, let me just put it to you this way. Do we think he was up at 3 a.m. debating which campus he liked more? I mean, do we think he was up at 3 a.m. debating which uniforms he liked more? Like, come on, man. I mean, really, like, we're using context clues, and we're assuming this because we're human beings with brains. And NIL, that plays such a major role, a major factor. And we know it's going to play a factor with guys like Dylan Stewart, like the top 5-star guys. NIL, without a doubt, it is a deciding factor. So, I mean, listen, it's one of those things, Mark, that, again, we've embraced it. It's a reality in college football, college sports. And anytime your school doesn't get a guy, people are going to look and say, hey, are we investing enough? Did we give enough? Did we do enough? What have you? And I think that, college coaches and not everybody's got unlimited resources, right? Most people do not. There were a couple out there that, they can just really kind of throw the bag at whoever they want. But, if you have limited resources or even just resources within reason, I think you got to be strategic about it, Mark. And I know people don't like to hear that because you don't like to hear about like salary cap and college sports and college football, and it's making college football less likable. I've had people tell me that, but it's the reality, man. So, if you got a certain amount of spend and you can only go so much, and like you got to find guys that fit within that quote unquote salary cap, if you will. So there has to be obviously a great commitment to it. But obviously, I would not make a bad investment either. But certainly, I mean, NIL is playing a major role in the recruitment, especially these top 5-star guys. I mean, again, Mark, do we really think Nicholas Harbor was up at 3 a.m. debating, well, you know, what do I want to major in? I guess that's going to make my decision. Like, I don't think if it were something like that, do you think Shane Beamer would have gone out of his way to mention it in the press conference? Like, it obviously had to be something pretty darn significant if Shane Beamer was bringing it to the forefront. So, you know, obviously Gamecock fans are just happy that it worked out. But, you know, NIL is certainly something that not just Clemson, Florida, or South Carolina are feeling, but every single fan base, every single coaching staff, every single program is feeling the effects of on a daily basis.
Chris, do you have one more segment in you today, buddy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I would like to have you on one more segment. I want to get into more of a Gamecock preview segment. One more question for you on this.
Yeah.
We've got Chris Phillips from the Spurs Up Show joining us right here on Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. this afternoon. Know you guys have a ton of choices out there. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. You guys can take part in what we've got cooking by giving us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you as well at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go on the show. Also have your Upstate's favorite athlete bracket, Sweet 16 matchup extraordinaire, two-time national champion at South Carolina, Michael Roth, against five-time Pro Bowler, first-round pick out of Clemson, DeAndre Hopkins. Diesel's voting for Nuke for DeAndre, simply saying far better pro. I'm voting for Michael Roth, saying, look, where we broadcast, college sports is number one, and Michael Roth accomplished more at the college level than DeAndre Hopkins did. The voting is now open. You can vote on Facebook. You can vote on Twitter. You can vote via the text line. You can give us a call and get your vote in. Voting closes at 3 p.m. tomorrow. All right, continuing our conversation with Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. And Chris, one more question for you as this really kind of up-and-coming entrepreneur that you are, Chris. Swimming in money, sir, swimming in money. Do you feel, Chris, a responsibility financially for the product that is on the field at South Carolina? And, you know, Diesel and I today, Chris, we're talking about this off the air. And Diesel wanted me to, you know, I thought we were kind of talking semantics, but Diesel said, well, paraphrase for me, Diesel. What were you telling me? It is not our responsibility to pay. I'm like, Diesel, ultimately, you and I decide how good we want Appalachian State and Florida to be. And you said yes, but
I fund my program through buying tickets, through buying official merchandise, things like that. It is not my responsibility to fund my university's recruiting efforts. It is a terrible investment to throw a tremendous amount of money that you may or may not have, that you may or may not be able to afford to give away, because you are literally giving away money to somebody who owes you absolutely nothing. It is a fool's investment to put your money into a collective.
So, Chris, do you feel financially responsible for South Carolina's success? Should Gamecock fans feel as though they are responsible for the success on the football field financially?
Yeah, Mark, listen, it's a great question. And I think Diesel's response is interesting, and one that I do agree with, actually. You know, coming from my perspective, I'll say this because I think there's a difference. Obviously, I'm an entrepreneur, somebody who's built my business around South Carolina. And, you know, I don't think it would be utilizing the platform and the opportunities we have if we were not doing things through, you know, merchandise is the lane and the avenue that we have taken, because obviously it's a value add to the Spurs Up Show, but also there are student athletes on campus that it is a value add that we have partnered up with, specifically giving back in NIL through merchandise sales, stuff like that, which obviously not going to get into details of percentages or numbers or anything like that, but we have been able to do that. I'm really grateful to say that we have. Now, the question you were asking is, does it fall on the responsibility of the common fan to funnel money into recruiting efforts? Absolutely not. And that is something, actually, Mark and Diesel, that has irked me in the past when I see South Carolina miss out on a recruit. And it doesn't have to be South Carolina, by the way. It can be any school. But when your favorite team misses out on a recruit and you're seeing other fans saying, well, it's your fault you're not giving, or it's your fault you're not giving enough, to Diesel's point, like, you give by going to games. You give by buying merchandise. You give by supporting and being a fan. And also, it's weird to come at people when you don't know people's financial situations, what they have going on, what they're comfortable doing. Like, I don't believe you should try to live in other people's pockets and tell them how they should spend their money, right? So, you know, if you're in a position to give and donate and, you know, give to the collectives and give back, that is awesome. But if you're not, or guess what, if you simply don't want to, because to Diesel's point, I mean, it's a risk. It's a bit of an investment where you don't really know that you're ever going to see your return on investment, right? Imagine giving all your money to a certain collective, and then a guy like Jaheim Bell up and leaves, Marshawn Lloyd up and leaves, Jordan Birch up and leaves. You're thinking, well, what's going on? I've been giving my money to the collective. Like, what? You see what I'm saying? So whether somebody wants to give, not give, what have you, that's their decision. That's their business. And you just hope that you have enough people in places where, the real big-time boosters, the people that can really afford to do it, that they're able to do it. But I think that is a decision that each person makes, and whatever that decision is, you should respect it, because I don't think the responsibility should fall on the common fan to supplement the quote-unquote salary cap of their favorite team.
And Chris, that return on investment can never be financial. You can never get a financial windfall by the player who you gave money to doing big things on the football field. Your return on investment can only ever be enjoyment or pain.
Right. No, absolutely, 110%, man. And again, like you mentioned, it's just, people, whatever position you're in, right, you do the best you can, what you got. And, you probably know this as well, Diesel, and Mark also, like, the price and the cost just to go to a game now, like, everything's gone up, right? But that's gone up significantly. So when you're also trying to come at people, because, again, I haven't seen it a ton, but I recall a certain time where I believe it was when Marshawn Lloyd announced he was transferring. And I saw some disturbing activity with people saying, well, the common fan needs to step up. They need to give more. It's like, is that really the place we're at in college football and college sports, where we're trying to bully the common fan to pinch every penny they have to try to maybe get the result that you want? I just don't know that I'm really a fan of it. I think you should let people make their own decision, and people will do what they can, and otherwise it's on the job of the coaching staff and the school and the main top boosters to supplement that, in my opinion.
Where I differ with you guys, Chris and Diesel, is I do believe it has now fallen on our laps to bring in the 4 and 5 stars. I do believe indirectly it is our responsibility to contribute. I'm not doing it, Chris, okay? And I refuse to do it. And my hope is that every time I see another $3 million go in the Gator Collective, a smile comes across my face, but they're not getting any money from me. So I am neglecting my responsibility, and I will do so with a smile. Okay, they're never going to get any money from me. Yeah.
I'll say this, Mark, not to cut you off, but I'll say this. Outside of a couple of schools, I think what you're going to see happen, if that's the case, you're going to see a lot of fan bases and a lot of fans learn to love 7 and 5 or 8 and 4 versus going broke chasing 10 or 11 or 12 wins. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so let's talk Gamecock football 2023 here. The key to the 2023 season, Chris, is what?
The line of scrimmage, offensive line, defensive line, running the ball, stopping the run. Mark, you mentioned it after last year. South Carolina finished outside of the top 100, both in rushing the football and stopping the run. And I know that's the low-hanging fruit, and it's not the fun thing to talk about because everybody wants to talk about Dowell Loggins, Spencer Rattler, Juice Wells, whatever. But I just think offensively, can South Carolina find balance? Mark, that is my number one question, because I don't care who you've got at quarterback, receiver, whatever weapons you have. If you're one-dimensional in the SEC, you don't have a chance, right? And if you can't give Spencer Rattler time, if you can't have some balance in your run game, you don't have a chance. Same thing on the defensive side. Your secondary should be solid, but if teams are able to run through you like they did last year, what difference does it make, Mark? So it really does come down to line of scrimmage. And like I said, I know that's not the most, the most fun thing to talk about. People want to talk about the flashy receivers and quarterbacks, but it really does come down to, in my opinion, Mark, the line of scrimmage, because I think if they can find some answers up front, I think you'll see more consistency from this football team as a whole.
Are we still at 8 and 4 as a success? 7 and 5 is disappointing?
I think so. I picked 7 and 5, but Mark, realistically, I expect South Carolina to take a slight step back. I do. That's why I picked it. And I don't think it's going to be like a massive step back. And I think 8 and 4 is very doable and very achievable. Mark, I've mentioned it many times, and I'll continue to say it. I don't think this team is as good as last year's team. I think there are more question marks, I'll say, going into this season than I had last season. Just even, for example, Spencer Rattler. I don't know, Mark, that I'm quite as high on Rattler as I was this time last year, right? Because seeing him on the field and being like, oh, this guy is human. You know what I mean? So I have my question marks. I have my doubts. I think 7 and 5 is an average season. I don't think it's a failure by any stretch, but I think it's an average season. It's below expectation. Expectations 8 and 4. I think it's slightly below expectation. I think 6 and 6 or worse, as we have pointed out, is a failure. But I think South Carolina, here's the thing, Mark, growth isn't linear. Nobody wants to hear that. I understand. I'm not making excuses here, but growth is not linear. South Carolina is not going to go 7 wins year 1 a Beamer, 8 wins year 2, 9 year 3, 10 year 4, 11 year 5, and then the rest is history, right? There's probably going to be some bumps in the road. There's probably going to be some ups and downs. And I could very well, with the schedule, with the questions at the line of scrimmage, with a brand new OC, with the guys you got to replace on the defensive side, with what you lost in the transfer portal, I could see this year being the year, sort of the bridge year, if you will, where you have more question marks than maybe you have answers. And you trust Shane Beamer that they'll get the job done in a couple games they're not expected to win. I mean, Mark, you and I have gone game by game. I've given you my predictions. So I expect South Carolina, especially down the stretch late in the season, to get it going. But I still think right now you're just at a point, those inconsistencies are probably what's going to shine more than anything because of some of the questions you have up front. So I wouldn't call 7-5 a failure by any means, but I think it's going to be an average season. And, you know, some people who only judge success or growth as, did you improve on last year's win total? I think some people will call it a failure. But, you know, if you can go win an 8th in a bowl game, then, you know, all of a sudden you have high hopes and high prospects going into 2024. And I think you keep up the momentum off the field in recruiting, which is most important in my opinion.
Chris, is there a position group or a big-time player that you're not worried about this year?
Well, I mean, Juice Wells. I mean, I think he's arguably the best wide receiver in the SEC returning. I mean, I think he's a legitimate big-time playmaker, probably a first-round, latest second-round NFL draft pick next year. I mean, that guy's a dude, man. And I'll give you offense and defense. Also, special teams. I'm not worried about special teams, Diesel. Special teams is going to be there. Beamer ball to the moon. It's probably going to be reason South Carolina steals a game or two this year. But offensively, I'll go Juice Wells. That's something I'm not concerned about at all. It's more about not concerned. I'm intrigued to see who steps up to take off some of the pressure off of him so he can get those one-on-one matchups, because every defensive coordinator is going to be looking and say, okay, we got to stop Juice Wells, right? I'm not worried about his game, though, his abilities on the defensive side. Nick Eamon-Warry on the back end of the defense. I mean, he's a real stud. And DQ Smith, really the back end of the Gamecocks defense. And I'll even say the secondary as a whole. You know, I have my question marks about Marcellus Dial, O'Donnell Fortune filling in for Cam Smith, Darius Rush, who were 2 NFL draft picks. But you know what? Torian Gray, the secondary coach, has really earned the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion, that he is going to put a really, really high-quality product on the field. So I would say that wide receiver led by Juice Wells and the secondary on the defensive side, those are 2 of the strengths on the football team. And they're not necessarily areas I'm all that concerned about as like a weakness, we'll say, going in the season.
Why is North Carolina favored over the Gamecocks?
You know, Mark, I've asked myself the same question. I think a lot of it has to do with Drake May. You know, the Drake May love fest, and this is the guy that's probably going to be a top 5 pick in next year's NFL draft, could be the number 1 overall pick. And, you know, give him credit. He was very, very good last year for a large part of the season. He finished poorly while Spencer Rattler finished well, but still the Drake May effect. Outside of that, you know, Mark, I think that Vegas looks at South Carolina's question marks up front yet again. I think they look at the inconsistencies of Spencer Rattler. Maybe they're not sold on him. Maybe they're not sold on Dowell Loggins, the offensive coordinator hire. And then the Gamecocks struggles on defense a season ago, and they think maybe, you know, with a retooled secondary, obviously losing your top 2 corners, as I mentioned, and, you know, a rush defense, they give up 198 yards per game a season ago. Maybe Vegas figures, hey, this is an offensive shootout, and, you know, we got to side with the better quarterback. Vegas probably looks and says, we think Drake May is the better quarterback. You know what I mean? I think top to bottom, I think most would agree that South Carolina has a better roster. But, you know, if I had to look at why is Vegas favoring UNC, I think it's got to do with the quarterback situation. I think they believe Drake May over Spencer Rattler in that game.
So we got a friend of the show, Spurs Up, Chris Phillips, and his name is Johnny Carrots, and he wants me to set up a little charity arm wrestling match with you. What is your response to that? Do you do charity arm wrestling matches, Chris Phillips?
You know, I don't do charity arm wrestling matches, and I'll say this, Mark. I will say this because I've actually seen that on social media before. In a fight, the person who swings down is always the loser. So I will pass on the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good, man. Sounds good. Chris Phillips, good stuff, man. I always do appreciate catching up with you, man. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later this week, all right?
Mark Diesel, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, Mark, we'll talk Thursday. I appreciate the opportunity.
Take care. All right, Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show joining us right now. We've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here in the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate.
Mark, do you want to keep the stream on for another 15 minutes for everybody? Or so, all right. Stream, we're going to go through the top 5 at 5 regardless. So we'll be right back. Not signing off at our usual time.
It's my walk-up song, ladies and gentlemen, bringing us back here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. Big thank you to all those who texted in on the text line on Saturday's show with CBS, man. That was a lot of fun. Big tip of the cap to Diesel for the you can steal a college football tradition topic. It was fun, man. Like we had 3 topics on that show blow up that I would never have known before the week. If you said, Mark, on Monday last week, like this time last week, what are you going to talk about on Saturday? I would have said, I have no idea. Well, here's what blew up. My top 10 athletes of all time, any sports. The Britney Spears slap of Victor Wembanyama, asking people what was their worst ever celebrity encounter.
I think it was the Britney Spears slap of herself.
Oh, of herself.
She didn't.
Right.
She didn't slap Victor. I think she slapped herself.
Yeah. I misspoke. Or his bodyguard kind of backhanded her.
Imagine saying you backhanded Britney Spears.
Oh man, brutal. So Diesel gave us this idea. You can steal a college football tradition. And we did it on the show Friday. Loved it. Then he said, Mark, this isn't going to work even better for a national audience. And so we had people from Ontario, Canada, stealing things from people in San Diego, California, San Diego State. My favorite one was the dude from Utah. Diesel. That's what did he say? He was like he went into a great explanation and was all about how the U stole that name from Utah because Utah is the original U. And he said, think about it. There's no actual U in Miami.
It's University of Miami.
It's the University of Miami, which is just like any other university of.
It's great branding though, but it just doesn't mean anything to Miami.
Right. And so Saturday during the show, man, he was cracking me up. He goes, Mark, the Miami Hurricanes stole the U from my Utah Utes, the original U. Utah has been the U since 1910. Miami stole it in the 70s. Miami has nothing to do with a U. Relinquish it, you fakes.
Madcraft, how do you respond to that? Madcraft is still watching on the stream. He's a Miami fan. How do you respond, Madcraft, to being told that your university stole
it.
The U from Utah?
You stole it. You stole it. He stole it. What movie is that from? I can't remember. He stole it. But anyway, yeah, you guys did. You heisted it. All right. And cut it out. Cut out the nonsense. All right. Let's see here.
It's because everybody's got the tradition. You watch your rival do something, you watch another school in your conference do something, and you're like I hate it because it's yours, but it's still pretty damn cool. Like you respect it. It's a cool tradition. It's a cool thing.
71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. And it is now time to do the top 5 at 5. The top 5, it's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles deal. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He was missing his money. Steve Martin was missing his money the next morning. And he said to John Candy, you stole it. And he hadn't. They were robbed.
If you love that movie, you should also watch Due Date with Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis. It is basically a remake of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. But instead of taking a northerly route through the winter, they take a southerly route. And it's funny as hell, man.
There you go.
It's called Due Date. If you've never seen it, it's a great movie.
Due Date. All right, my friends, it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 525. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day. The top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it, man. It was gangster.
5.
At number 5 today. I wasn't the only one who just made a Freudian slip. It was also Rob Manfred, who at the MLB draft last night was supposed to say Grand Canyon University. Let's just say Rob Manfred did not.
Here he comes with the 6th pick. With the 6th pick of the 2023 MLB draft, the Oakland Athletics select Jacob Wilson, a shortstop from Grand Union University.
Oh,
supposed to be Grand Canyon University. I could see how that would happen, Diesel. He's not supposed to make that mistake as commissioner, but I could see why it could happen.
It's also a small school, right? You don't say Grand Canyon University all that often.
No, you certainly don't. What I can't see happening is the president of the storied university known as the University of South Carolina. At graduation commencement, you thought you were going to move on to this. Oh, Diesel, can we get the song? Do we still have the song somewhere? What you can't have your university president do during commencement is this.
Now my honor and privilege to officially congratulate you as the newest alumni from the University of California. Congratulations and please be seated. Never mind. Sorry about that.
You push-ups. Let me get another drink first, and I'll get started.
Did he hiccup, Diesel?
It sounded a little bit
it sounded
right
like
there at the very end. Let me play
gosh.
this little spot at the end. I'll turn it up and I'll pull the music down even more.
Never mind. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I owe you
he was
push-ups.
tripping up over his words, man. He was tripping over his words. All right. If you haven't heard it, at the conclusion of the top 5 at 5, we will play the greatest listener submission that we have received from anybody who listens to this show in 4.5 years. And it was in honor of that Bob Caslin slip-up that ultimately spelled the end of his time as president at the University of South Carolina. Next up.
4.
Number 4, folks, my big take of the day, the Angels have to trade Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, that's right. I would trade the best athlete who has ever played the sport of baseball. I would trade Mr. Baseball. I would trade the guy who's an all-star at 2 different positions. I would trade the guy on a scale of 1 to 10 who's a 10-level hitter and a 9-level pitcher. Why? Because the number one most important thing to Shohei Ohtani is not money, it's wins. They haven't made the playoffs since he's been there in 2018. I'm sorry. They are 1 game under 500. How many teams are around 500 that don't have Shohei Ohtani? I'm pretty sure they could be mediocre without him, right? Number 3, the owner is notoriously cheap. Invests in stars to sell tickets, but doesn't put a winning product around that team. Number 4, you're going to lose Shohei Ohtani for nothing. For nothing. Number 5, folks, do you guys realize this? That these massive deals in Major League Baseball largely don't work? I went and looked at the 25 biggest contracts in MLB history. I would say 20 of them didn't work out of 25. That's 80%.
Yeah.
They don't get their return. Furthermore, I looked at a list of the top 10 players in Major League Baseball right now. Diesel, 9 of the top 10 did not play in the World Series last year. So, buyer beware. Spend at your own risk.
Trading Shohei Ohtani allows you to trade a 10 for 2 8s or 3 7s. It gives you depth. It gives you quality across your lineup instead of quality in one position on the batting line in the batting order and then a bunch of bums after that. One guy cannot carry a baseball team. This is not basketball. It doesn't work that way. You cannot have Shohei Ohtani and a bag of chips out there on the field. You're not going to win games that way.
You can't do it. And that's the reality, folks. The Braves have 8 All-Stars. Those 8 All-Stars are making a combined $83 million. They're making $10 million a year. Shohei Ohtani's about to make $60 million a year. Spread that 60 over 6 players, invest like the Braves do. You'll be much better off for it. Next up.
3.
Folks, you guys know this show is fun and hard-hitting and light and spirited and the whole 9 yards. And we got some really rough news over the weekend that we wanted to pass on to you. Number 1, our very own Brandon Keeler, who we love on this show, who's filled in on this show when Diesel's out. He's filled in. I think, Diesel, you've hosted with Brandon Keeler, have you not? You've been the host, and Brandon Keeler's been the producer. He's filled in on the Rob Brown show as well. Brandon Keeler had a heart attack on Saturday night, and he went into open heart surgery today. He, I am now told, is out of surgery, and he's in the ICU. And he's got a very, very long recovery in front of him, a very, very scary time. I can tell you guys this, Brandon Keeler, I don't know a better person than Brandon Keeler. Just as nice and as kind and as loving and as supportive, brings his family to our live shows, loves what we're about, waves the flag for the fan upstate every chance that he gets. I know you guys have heard Brandon Keeler on this show. Please, folks, please. I feel like thoughts and prayers are not enough, but if you would, please say a prayer for our guy, Brandon Keeler, right now and this evening, okay? He could really, really use them. Cassie, his wife, is listening, as well as his kids are all hurting very, very badly with this news of Cassie's husband, our colleague, and their children's father. Also, we would be remiss if we did not mention the very sad and tragic passing of Richard Wright of Burns High School. Recently graduated. He was of Duncan, and he played defensive back and wide receiver for the Rebel program. He died at Culpeper Landing Apartments in Duncan on Saturday night. He was found, transported to an area hospital, later died from injuries suffered in the shooting. Just absolutely, positively tragic. And guys, it's hard to know what to say in times like this. I don't know why everybody wants to go to violence. I don't know why we have a propensity to go to violence when we have disagreements. I don't even know if there was a disagreement here or if it was a random act of violence. All I know is a young man has had his life taken from him. The Burns community is devastated. We are devastated. We carry Burns sports. We carry Burns football. And folks, we're going to be praying hard tonight for the family of one Richard Wright of Duncan. Just an absolutely senseless loss of life. You know, when you're mad at somebody, guns are not the answer. They're never the answer. And it's a darn shame. Next up.
2.
At number 2 here on the show today. Folks, my feeling is, all right, that this is going to be a very, very, very close vote. It is the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. It is the Sweet 16, and it is Clemson against South Carolina in this sense. We're asking for your honest vote, your honest assessments. Cast your vote right now. DeAndre Hopkins or Michael Roth. I have voted Michael Roth. Diesel has voted DeAndre Hopkins. Diesel votes Hopkins because he was a better pro. I voted Michael Roth because in our area, college sports is king, and Michael Roth won 2 national championships. DeAndre Hopkins won none.
Also, you don't have to have trophies in hand to be beloved. Taj Boyd is beloved, has no trophies in hand.
Also true. Also true. So what is your votes, ladies and gentlemen? DeAndre Hopkins, 5-time All-Pro, played for Clemson, the Texans, the Cardinals, led the NFL in receiving touchdowns in 2017, versus Michael Roth, played for South Carolina, the Angels, the Rangers, was on the all-tournament team in 2011 for the College World Series, and a 2-time College World Series champion, pitching in the deciding game in both Gamecock National Championships. Did not have much of a pro career, but did more at the college level than DeAndre Hopkins did. And in this area, college sports are king. So who do you say, folks? Michael Roth or DeAndre Hopkins? In our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket, here's how you can vote. Text to the number 71307. Have the word fan be the first word of your text, and then send us DeAndre Hopkins or Michael Roth. Sound good? If you're listening, let us see your votes, please, right now. And finally,
1.
Victor Wembanyama had his debut for the San Antonio Spurs in the Summer League over the weekend. And let's be honest, he didn't play great in the first game. But I'll tell you what, my friends, I was more impressed watching him play poorly than if he had had a good game. And here's why. Number one, he still impacted the game. Had 8 rebounds and 5 block shots. 5 block shots. Number two, I could see that in 3 or 4 years, he's going to be one of the 10 best players in the NBA. 9 out of 10 guys that are over 7 feet tall are a little bit klutzy and clumsy and plodding and slow. This dude has point guard ball handles and shooting guard shooting ability. He can make threes and drain threes, and he's 7'4" or 7'5", blocking shots, real rim protector. And another thing about Victor Wembanyama, he was passionate about a summer league game, was urging on his teammates, was high-fiving everybody. The Spurs have shut him down now for the summer league, which stinks. Played all of 2 games. Is not playing for France in the FIBA World Cup. But I really love the leadership that he showed. I don't see a lot of that from American players, if I'm honest with you. Was engaged, was encouraging his guys, was a true leader, really cared about the game. Victor Wembanyama here speaks on his poor Game 1 performance, saying, look, I don't have really a clue right now. I'm just trying to learn the system and how we do what we do in San Antonio.
Overall, I'm glad we won this game. There's no better way to start for a premiere. And I'm honestly I didn't really know what I was doing on the court tonight, but it's I'm trying to learn for the next games, and the important is to be ready for the season.
The words of one Victor Wembanyama, game number 2, 27 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. You see, man, you got the right attitude. Things can turn around quickly for you. So impressed with what I saw from Victor Wembanyama. Those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. You can get to us on the text line at 71307, where we'd really appreciate your votes. Michael Roth, DeAndre Hopkins. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel yet? We'd love to have you. At the Fan Upstate on YouTube, hit that red subscribe button. We'd love to have you there.
We had a couple of newbies jump into the YouTube chat today, which was awesome. Colton and Joshua, 2 names that I hadn't seen on there before. I think there was even 1 or 2 more new guys who had gotten into this to the chat over there, and one of them was brought to us by Just Jess. See, making things happen over there. You're bringing us new people every single day. Gooba Gobble, one of us. We are a cult. We're building and getting bigger and bigger every day.
I think that's the first ever use of cult in a positive sense, Jason. We're a cult and we're building.
JD calls us a family. I call it a cult.
I got to tell you guys, DeAndre Hopkins is off to a big lead on Twitter. A big lead on Twitter. Diesel, channeling my inner Donald Trump wrong. He has
so big you don't even know. You can't even see it from where you're standing right now. Huge.
He is leading bigly right now.
Bigly
on Twitter. So the Michael Roth fans need to come through. Guys, simply put, if you are hearing this, okay, we need your votes. DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Roth in the Sweet 16 of our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. The winner of today's matchup, which will be determined by 3 p.m. tomorrow, gets Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Elite 8. I think the winner of this can beat Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Elite 8. We will see how that role plays out. All right, we've got Onsides or Offsides coming your way next, right here in the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Yeah, you guys on the chat, we can't thank you enough for everything that you've done and will continue to do. I know you'll continue to do it, bringing us new people every single day, getting more and more people involved in this. I think I looked up and I saw 12 or 13 people watching at one point. I mean, if we can get to the point where we've got 15 or 20 watching every single day at any given time, I mean, that's how this thing just grows organically. And you guys are such a big part of that. And we can't say thank you enough.
Guys, thank you. Thank you so much, man. Love seeing it every single day. We're gonna get to your comments every time Diesel sees a good one. I'm usually on the text chat. Diesel's watching the YouTube comments. This is awesome to see, man.
It's hard to keep up with now.
Yeah, it is, man. There's so many people commenting. It's fantastic. Just Jess, JD Wyatt, Spur Daddy, Adam Dameron, Chris Marler, Joshua. I can't say that last name, but Josh, please know that we still appreciate you. We still appreciate you. All right. Thank you guys, Roger Carper, all you guys, man. We love what you're doing with the YouTube channel. We appreciate it so much. We go a little bit longer today to make sure you guys get the top 5 at 5, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Okay.